going to grab a coffee. Do you want one?
Oh, I'm all good. I've got one right here.
Okay, pal. If you didn't know already from our intro, this is a Suzuki Cappuccino. I'm here with Cyrus, who's the owner of this awesome car. Stay tuned for more. Oh, it sounds good, the boost.
Yeah.
The blow-off sounds really good.
And that's stock. That's with everything. All the emissions and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Why this car?
I guess I've always loved small cars. Small cars are my favorite thing.
Okay. Yeah. Short kings love small cars.
Yeah, exactly. My size, you know.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're going twice as fast as you actually are.
And you get revenge on tall people because they can't fit in it
right.
or drive it.
Then obviously the ABC Kei cars with everything are just super cool to me with initial drift and all that stuff. So growing up, that was like, oh, one of those would be so cool.
Yeah. And you couldn't get them back then.
Right, exactly.
Also, we were kids, but in general,
but you get no imports.
Right.
Then, and the Cappuccino was definitely top of my list from that group.
Okay.
The beats are really cool. The AZ ones are 80s and wild.
What are the AZ ones?
It's a AutoZam AZ one.
Oh my god! Okay, I never even heard of it.
Yeah. And they're cool. They're super cool. They're like all glass, gull wing doors, full 80s like triangles everywhere.
God, that's cool.
So they're cool cars. They're way unattainable in price now.
Okay.
25 to 35K
wow.
for a Kei car these days for a good one. And the beats are NA, and from my understanding, the drivability is not quite as good.
Yeah, it's a little limited. Like Mike with his Honda Beat, when we were going to film, we weren't going to come up here.
Right.
Because of the hill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to wring their neck to do anything.
Right.
And they're happy with it. They'll run like that. They'll run at 9K.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the turbo makes this just super drivable. It's happy. Like, it's happy at highway speed, actually.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't feel safe on the highway.
I'm sure, especially with how small it is. Like,
I drive it like a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I assume everyone's actively trying to kill me.
Makes sense.
But yeah, it performs great, and I've just heard good things about them. And yeah, it was totally like dream car when I was a teenager that I never thought I'd actually be able to buy. This one was in Japan.
Okay.
Had a friend that imported a little K truck from a dealer through a guy in upstate New York who has a little dealership.
Oh,
there.
Is that HVNY or HMNY?
Oh no, what's the name of it? Catskill Auto, I believe is the name of it.
All right.
And he worked with him. It was great. He had a great experience. He was like, and I'm obviously as a K truck, and I'm like, well, my dream car has always been a Cappuccino, but like, who knows what it would be like to actually import one?
Right.
And,
yeah.
And he was like, if you ever want to, here's his number. Give him a call. Like, send him a message. Just be like, hey, I'm interested. He's super friendly. He'd be willing to like walk you through the process. He's got contacts out there that could look at the car in person. Like,
wow.
All this stuff. And so I messaged him literally just being like, I'm interested probably in a high mileage auction car, try to avoid rust. Like, if I need to do engine work on it, that's fine.
Okay.
Like, maybe do a rebuild project.
Right.
Something, like, let's get into this for cheap and just see, like, what would the actual cost be?
Right.
Which was great. And he, super attentive, he walked me through the entire thing, was like, this is how you read an auction sheet. This is what's coming up the next week.
Wow.
Basically, if you want me to, I will just keep sending you auction sheets of the ones that seem interesting to me. And when you see one, we'll just pull the trigger right then, because that's how it works. It's like,
oh, wow.
you have a day.
Yeah.
Like, you see it pop up, you go, okay, that's the one I'm going to bid on. Give me a max number, and I'll make sure it gets...
Wow. So it's not like bring a trailer where you have 7 days.
They move fast. From my understanding, they move fast. They pop up. Anything that's good
goes quickly.
You know, they maybe 3 days later or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't bid. The biddings are all live, so they happen very fast.
Gotcha. All right, so you tell them you're looking for one.
Sends me some auction cars. Gives me estimates on shipping, what it would take to actually get here, and it's like, obviously it changes week to week. And we're kind of doing this back and forth, and I'm looking at some, tracked cars, potential rust, like the usual auction car thing. And then he's like, my contact that goes and buys all my K-trucks for me sometimes pulls some Cappuccinos that are really nice and holds them in inventory. Let me just ask him what he's got.
Yeah.
And he came back with two. One was this, and the other one was a custom, like, old 60s Corvette Stingray paint job, like maroon with the white stripe on white walls.
Oh!
And
now that's a Cappuccino. It's got the foam.
They were about the same. Yeah, exactly. They were about the same price. I was like, that one needs to. I want something I can drive.
Right.
And feel good
because here
about
that would
driving.
be too much. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to worry about like scratching it or getting the tires messed up or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like. Those were the two. I looked at this one. He sent me a ton of pictures, and he basically sent me the listing that the guy had up, that his contact had up in Japan for it, and he wanted a pretty reasonable price for it. I looked at the pictures. It looked like pretty much the cleanest one I'd ever seen.
Yeah. Anywhere
in the States, elsewhere, like.
That's crazy.
I was like, "There's no pictures of underneath. Do you mind asking him to get some pictures of underneath?" He came back less than 12 hours later with 30 photos, undercarriage, wheel wells, video walk around of the whole car, drive around the block, like.
Whoa.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
And he would answer, I'd get off work late, whatever. I would message him. He'd answer my questions, everything, like with whatever time of day it was.
Wow.
Yeah. So great customer service. He was awesome to work with, and he handled all the paperwork, and we just went from there and settled on a price, and he did shipping, import docs, the whole thing.
Wow.
And then I waited 2 months and had a Cappuccino show up at my doorstep, pretty much.
You Uber Eats the Cappuccino.
Yeah.
Just the wrong one. Or maybe the right one.
I think it was the right one.
The right one. That's so funny.
Yeah, so yeah, just a great process. But I just didn't think, I thought price-wise they were still going to be a little unattainable for me. And
yeah.
But this was so nice, and really not much more than an auction car would have been.
And how long ago was this?
This was 2.5 years ago.
Okay, all right. And then what's...
February 22.
Okay.
Because they were made 92 to 97.
Gotcha. Okay, so you had to wait until,
Basically, my theory was the 97s became available in 2022.
Okay.
To the U.S. with the 25-year import law.
Yep.
And so for me, I was like, our supply is out.
Yeah.
Is tapped at this point.
You're right. That's true. Yeah. Right. That makes sense.
The number only goes down from here.
Right. Okay.
So I was like, if I'm going to get one,
now would be the time.
Now seems like the time to do it. Prices were still inflated a little bit from the COVID used car business.
Yeah.
So they're still hovering right around what I paid for it, which is great. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Nice ones are still over 10K right now.
That's
right around
so
there.
Funny.
And now Miatas are approaching that price, so
or more, depending on like how clean it is.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think this is more fun.
Those are fighting words. I like it. Make the statement. They can't say that this is more fun or not.
They've
never
faster,
driven it.
Not faster.
No.
But I think it's
maybe
more
fun. So what year is this one?
This is a 93.
93. Okay.
Yep.
How many miles did it have on it when you bought it? Or kilometers?
Imports in general are unknown mileage.
Okay. So it
It
could
is
be,
possible to have a verified import. I'm not saying that that's not possible.
but it's hard or difficult.
Everything exported gets their mileage rolled back.
Really? Okay.
I would not trust at 20. It's 25 years old.
Yeah.
There are not a plethora of 3,000-mile 25-year-old cars floating around, and most of the odometers say 3,000.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, because that says what, 7,100?
We're at 71. It was at 4,000 kilometers on the dash when I got it.
Yeah, that's
This
probably not right.
this dash has been swapped too, so I assume
Okay.
this is a later model dash. It goes up to 240 kilometers instead of the, I think, 160 that the first gens I think only went up to 160 or something like that. So I know this is a later dash.
And so
I assume it got zeroed out when they swapped the dash.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure it did.
No reason not to.
So it could be a higher mileage.
Yeah, the Japanese contacts mechanic estimated it between 30 and 50,000 miles was his guess.
Which is still not that much.
Especially for a Suzuki engine. I
Yeah.
mean, they're really surprisingly reliable and high strung.
That's fun. Yeah, what's this thing redline at?
Dash redline is 85.
Okay.
I believe fuel cut is a little over 9.
That's crazy. Out of that small of a motor too.
Yep, 660, 3-cylinder 660.
660 cc.
Yep. So smaller than a lot of motorcycles out there.
Yeah. And what's the horsepower you said is?
I believe 64 was
64.
the factory rating on it. I wouldn't expect more than 60 out of it these days.
That's a riot. That's so funny. And it's a 5-speed or 4-speed?
5-speed.
5-speed. A 60 horsepower 5-speed.
5-speed manual, and the turbo is about the smallest thing you've ever seen.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
It's the size of a quarter.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's got to be if it's only 60 horsepower with a turbo.
Yeah. Well, so the stock. This is the interesting thing, right? This was a Japanese everyday city car, but sportsy car.
Like sport luxury kind of thing, or sport compact?
More like sport grocery getter.
Okay.
Right? Like, enjoy your experience driving to the store and getting your...
pick up ice cream for your wife.
Exactly. Yeah. And kind of, that's what the ABCs were. They wanted to make sporty versions of just the little city grocery getters.
Okay. It sounds so good.
And so, yeah, that was kind of the goal with it. And being Japanese and sports car, you know about the horsepower agreement that they had back in the day.
Yeah.
The Kei cars are kind of the same thing. My understanding, I could get this wrong. My understanding is that the horsepower limit is an agreement, not a law. There's lots of laws that govern Kei cars. They're a special class of car in Japan.
Okay.
So they have external size dimension limits.
I've heard about this. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And they have engine size requirement, which is what the 660s are.
Okay.
That's why everything's kind of right around that same.
Yeah. Because even the K trucks are similar. CC.
Yep.
Yeah.
But after displacement, as far as I know, if there's not actually a law on the horsepower, they just all agreed to not get into a horsepower race when you have a limited displacement. And that 64 was their number for horsepower.
Okay.
Suzuki sold from the factory 2 competition use only ECUs.
Interesting.
Not road legal.
Okay. In Japan, not road legal.
Correct.
Okay.
One of them was the N1 ECU. It was and they're locked from Suzuki. They're not tunable. They're not flashable.
Okay.
I mean, they're fully locked ECUs from Suzuki. Or Suzuki Sport, technically, their tuning department.
Okay.
And the N1 was straight up plug and play. Don't touch anything on the car. Plug it in. Runs about 85 horsepower to the wheel.
Okay, which isn't bad.
Which is a
huge improvement for
boost
such a small car. Yeah. What's that?
A third.
Yeah, 33% improvement.
Right. On just ECU.
On
so
just
that's
ECU?
all that's doing is changing boost and timing.
Okay.
A little bit. And then they sold an N2 ECU kit.
Okay.
And that was injectors, and an uprated Hitachi turbo.
Okay.
And the ECU.
Okay.
Those are now going for quite a bit of money on the used market.
That makes sense. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to get more out of these.
And my understanding is those put a little over 100 to the wheel. And that's kind of the limit on from what I've heard, that's kind of the limit on what most people
there's no
to run
tire.
This car.
How would you put any more on that? At some point, too much power is.
I mean, third gear becomes a lot of fun, basically. The car's driving dynamics and handling are actually really good.
But the thing is, just gotta want to break loose because of how light it is.
Only if you really get on it.
Okay.
I've been surprised. I mean, with the tires, granted these are wider than stock tire.
Okay.
Stock tire, it would break loose in second gear.
With just the stock.
With just the stock. Yeah. No, the stock tire is quite small. But with this, the grip is unlike anything I've been in besides suspension tuned Miatas at autocross.
Really?
And no power steering.
Oh wow.
No
okay.
ABS.
Oh my god.
So your connection to the road is like,
yeah, you're there.
You're glued to the road, and you turn the steering wheel, and the car goes. There's no fuss, no body roll.
Yeah.
I am on coilovers.
Okay.
It came with Suzuki Sport coilover suspension, adjustable.
Gotcha.
So I'm lowered probably about an inch, I think, is what we noticed when I was sitting next to a stock one.
Interesting. Okay. You found another stock one out here?
Yeah, there's two. There's two more that I know of in the state.
Really?
There might be another one that someone's heard about. I don't know. But about 2 years before I got this, there's a guy down in Mountain Home. They got one. His was the first into the state for sure.
Wow.
It's a silver one. And then, he'll take it out. He's had it out at some of the Boise car shows, like the Father's Day one. It was out, stuff like that. And then there's a guy that got a green one last December, I believe it was.
Okay, I haven't seen that one yet. Holy smokes, dude. It's like a little rocket ship.
And that's with extra weight in the car.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it is.
Yeah, that's
and I will tell you right now,
pounds.
that is a noticeable amount of weight in the car.
I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, thank you. No.
no, me too. I do it, like, I get in the car and I'm like, oh, right, I'm like a chunk of the weight that's in the car.
You're like 1/3 or whatever.
Yeah, I'm a
just
noticeable
double the weight
amount.
with me in the car, okay?
No. Not at all.
What does it weigh?
It's about 1,600 wet.
That's so funny.
Which I've got probably a little over half a tank of fuel in it right now.
You could take maybe 8 to 10 people and pick this thing up, no problem. Maybe less, if we get some real muscle guys.
I am fairly certain I can lift the rear end off the ground by myself. Yeah.
That's a riot.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
My friend with the K truck used to, when people would ask him how much it would weigh, he would walk to the back of the truck and just pick the tires up off the ground and then stand there talking to them.
I want a K truck so bad. I want a Honda Acti with the dump bed.
Yep.
So bad.
They're so nice. You can throw UTV tires on it too.
Yeah.
And
oh, dude.
just have a little mud monster.
Yeah. Put a little plow on it.
Yep.
You know.
That's what he used to do, actually.
Really?
Yeah. He did dirt bike races out on Lake Champlain.
Oh, hell yeah.
In the winter.
Yeah.
And so it's great because he didn't have to have two rigs. He could throw his dirt bike in the back of it, plow on the front, and it's light enough to take out onto the lake when trucks can't go out there.
Yep.
And so he could plow a course and everything on the lake. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I like that. That's almost like the next vehicle I will have and own is because, I rent a dump trailer all the time to do yard stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I looked into buying one of those, and they're $5 to $6 grand, maybe 3 or 4 if you're lucky used.
Yep.
And I could buy a Honda Acti for the same price range.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a little more if I want to get a nice one. Where do you service this thing?
I work on it.
You work on it.
Yep.
Okay, so you do.
I've done everything on it pretty much. I've gone to shops for some things.
Okay.
Obviously, I just took the wheels over to a shop to have the tires put on. I took, I had a rear brake caliper that started leaking on me.
Okay.
the reason not to daily drive a Kei Car, and this is kind of the big thing with something like this, or any rare vehicle, I suppose, is so rear brake caliper starts leaking. That's a serviceable part. However, you have to go find a seal that Suzuki doesn't sell anymore.
Oh God.
On Yahoo Auctions Japan, have it shipped to a proxy, have the proxy mail it to the US, and it's however much shipping plus however much someone on Yahoo Auctions wants for their new brake seal, for a piece of rubber this big.
Just to do a pretty common serviceable part of the car.
Yeah, and I get scared about seals. I've worked on cars for a while. I've done some pretty big jobs, honestly.
Okay.
My Subaru's engine swapped. That's got a 6-cylinder in it.
What? That thing's a beast too.
From an Outback.
Okay, cool.
But the EZ30 is in it, 3-liter 6-cylinder.
Nice.
So I've done stuff like that. Seals still kind of scare me.
Yeah.
As far as like, if they're not leaking, I really don't want to touch them.
Right.
And I've just replaced seals that have then started seeping for whether I didn't clean the surfaces well enough, whatever the little things were that I'm just nervous about them.
Yep.
So I just took the brake caliper I took the brake caliper off, did all that stuff, and then just took it over to Paradigm and they were happy to pop the seal in for me.
Gotcha.
And make sure it was all the way it's
correctly.
Everything was the way that it was supposed to be, and piston was back in correctly and all that, and then just popped it back on the car, let the brakes work perfect.
Is there a lot of parts that are hard to come by for this, or?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. The Kei Cars in general, but I think particularly this one, are parts bag cars to a certain extent. They were cheap. The whole point was that they were cheap city cars, go get your groceries in them. They weren't supposed to be fancy things.
Right. So you'd think parts would be a dime a dozen for them.
Originally, they probably were.
Right.
Now the last car made was in 97.
Right.
Suzuki has actually kept up better than I think a lot of manufacturers would for a limited production car that's 30 years old. They actually still make new parts for this.
Oh, okay, cool.
They're starting to dwindle out. The last set of stock struts got sold last year. The very last one, new stock strut. So coilovers are essentially the only thing available now.
Yeah.
There are plenty of companies. There's multiple companies making brand new coilovers for this car.
Okay.
Though.
I was going to ask if there were a lot of aftermarket companies starting to make parts for these.
They always have. People have always been tuning them. People in Japan drift these things all the time.
Oh, really?
They do full drift builds on them.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude.
So
this thing must be so fun to drift.
It controls better than I thought it would.
But it's just little, the short wheelbase like that is actually harder for drifting, is what I've learned.
Yeah, and I've not drifted an MR2, but I've driven an MR2, and I have an idea of how snappy they are.
Yep.
And all the stories about them, and they are mid-engine, which I think is a big culprit there.
Yeah, big difference. Yeah.
At autocross, I've definitely gotten it sideways unintentionally, and popped the rear out, and it doesn't snap hard.
Interesting.
I've been very surprised if you just stay in it and don't upset the car too much and let it roll out. It's really controllable, especially for how short the wheelbase is.
Yeah,
it doesn't
definitely
want to just snap around on you.
Yeah.
You have a moment. You have a moment to catch it, for sure.
One moment.
Yep.
Before it's gone.
The thing that surprised me the most, which I think is kind of interesting.
Even the mirrors are so little.
Yep. And yet you can see actually all the way behind the car through them. Because the rear end is so short.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Dude, this thing is... Wow, dude. You're not going crazy, but I'm just so surprised in such a little car.
Oh,
it's so unassuming.
Yeah. And it has power out of the corner. I mean, this is third gear uphill,
Yeah. It's not by any means sluggish.
No.
And you're not super high up in the RPM range either.
Yeah, stock boost is around 3,500 is where it comes on pretty strong, is what I found. And
gotcha.
It kind of drops off somewhere above 7K.
Gotcha, okay. Does that tune change anything with that? Does it bring it in lower, higher?
Higher.
Okay.
For sure,
And
I
gives you
think.
more
I don't
of a
know. I
fan.
haven't driven one that's tuned.
Well, that'll be interesting when you do that.
Yeah. And yeah, this is totally like on these tires, this is taking it super easy.
Yeah.
Like,
This is unbelievable. I didn't think I could get any lower to the ground from a Miata or an S2000.
yeah.
And we are
Right.
really low to the ground.
It's a go-kart. It's full-on go-kart.
Yeah. That's right. This is what it like feels like, is you're just in a go-kart.
It's the only car that I've driven that just, you get in it and you're like, oh, this is just lovely. Like,
It's just so funny to be in something so small with some power and the turbos like blow off and the turbo whine.
and the other fun thing, for, canyon carving, mountain road sort of stuff, is that it's so narrow that I can run. I have a lot of play in my lane. If I start out here, right?
Yeah.
Like,
You never have to cross
oh God, no.
any lines.
No.
Because you have the entire lane.
And you can run it, run it all the way out to the paint.
Yeah. Yo, you're hitting every apex. Yeah.
It's great.
What is this thing, Gorilla thing?
Japanese GPS.
Is it really?
Yeah.
You have a freaking Japanese GPS in this thing?
Yeah. That's what it came
Does
with.
it work?
Not here. It does turn on as far as I know
Yeah,
of.
it just
I don't
obviously
actually
doesn't
know.
have the map pack.
Yeah. Doesn't know where it is.
You figure just leave it on for, it's probably got a hole in the dash or something for it.
I'll take it off at some point. I need to get into the wiring. The stereo doesn't work currently.
Okay.
Like I said, it's one of those things that I just haven't done because it's run so perfectly that
Right.
when I got it, I was like, I'm just going to enjoy it. And that's kind of where I've been.
Which I think is the right thing to do. How'd you learn how to work on cars? You just kind of pick it up yourself, or?
Yeah, well, I guess growing up, you grew up on the East Coast where everything's rusted to shit.
Oh, God. It's so miserable.
And so...
yeah, you're from Vermont.
I'm from Vermont.
Yeah.
And growing up, all of my cars, all my family's cars growing up were beaters that you'd run, $1,000 beater, run it till it died.
Yep.
If whatever was going on was cheap and fixable, have a mechanic do the quick, cheap fix on it.
And those mechanics are a dime a dozen out there.
Yep.
Where they're like, listen, and they're honest about it. They're like, I can do this fix for this price,
and
it'll
probably
might hold
last
for
you
a
6
year or
yeah,
6 years or 1 month
it
or
might
whatever.
go 6 months, whatever.
Yeah.
The body's not going to hold much longer. You're
No.
not going to get an inspection sticker after that because
No.
you have a hole in the floor.
No.
So
then you're relying on rejection stickers.
yep. And so that's kind of what I grew up with, and that meant we went through a lot of cars, a bunch of Subarus, just fantastic cars in the snow.
Yes.
For the cost, there is no all-wheel drive system like it.
And and in Vermont,
Audi's
Subaru's a household name.
Yeah, Audi's the next best, is the maybe
Quattro,
maybe slightly better all-wheel drive system, but if it breaks, you can't just go into the junkyard and grab whatever you need,
Right.
So you're not really working on cars, but just kind of hearing the sounds that our cars always were making, and then what the mechanics would diagnose.
Right.
That's
funny.
And they'd be like, and I'm like, oh, so that's what it sounds like when a strut starts clunking. That's what it sounds like when you lose a wheel bearing. That's what it sounds like. And so that was always kind of interesting to me. I really liked planes growing up, probably more than cars.
Oh, cool. Okay.
My dad had motorcycles growing up.
Okay. So you've been around the automotive side of things
just
a
kind
lot
of been
growing
around
up.
that.
Yeah.
And when I moved out here, I had a friend actually a coworker friend with the Ballet, and he was working on a project Subaru in his garage, and we lived next door to each other pretty much.
Gotcha.
And I came home one day and was like, oh, what are you working on? And he was like, actually, could you give me a hand with this? And so I just started helping him with stuff more than anything else.
Yeah. Your Subaru's all jacked up too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's probably 5 inches over stock in total would be my guess, including the tire, including the tire, like just like actually how far off the ground it is.
That's so funny. It's got a pretty mean stance to it.
Yeah, it's in a '97 Impreza, with
wagon, right?
Yep, Impreza Outback Sport.
Okay.
The little hatchback.
Yep.
and it's got a Forester struts all the way around.
Okay.
King lift springs.
Okay.
For another inch or so, and then I think it's a 28-inch diameter tire on it. KO2s.
Yeah, I noticed it was BF Goodrich
yep,
all-terrains.
yep.
I was like, that is
Yep.
wild.
And then skid plates and 6-cylinder EZ30 out of a 2002 Outback.
Have you met Derek since?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has he seen that car?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've taken that one to a bunch of stuff too.
Okay, because he probably was drooling over it, and the EZ30.
Yeah, that was before he got his actually.
Yeah.
That we swapped it, but yeah, it's a fun car. It's
that one's pretty cool too.
It's surprisingly capable. I've got again more things. Want to either cut the bumper or do an aftermarket bumper, get a little better approach angles and stuff like that. But like, I've taken it on Jeep trails in Moab. I've taken it.
That's sick.
It's a beast. It'll go pretty much anywhere. I'm always shocked. Like,
no,
we look at stuff and I'm like, I don't know. Like maybe that'll be fine, and then I'll just drive right through it. I'm like,
it looks capable.
It's fine.
Every time I walk by it, I'm like, that thing looks capable.
It's fun. It's fun for sure.
And it's so funny that I saw this on the street the one time.
Yeah.
And I left.
I mean, I park on the street basically if I'm about to take it out again. Like,
I've never seen it since.
Yep.
That was the one time I've seen it on the street.
Yep.
And I left a business card on it.
Yep.
And
no, it was perfect.
again, back then, like we were saying, I didn't have any episodes out.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a shot in the dark.
Totally.
And we've been trying to make this work for like 8 months.
I know.
And we finally did it. And so I'm stoked to have done this episode. This car is so sweet.
Thank you. Yeah. It's too much fun. as you felt. I mean, you've been in a lot of fast cars in sporty cars and stuff.
This is a super fun car. Like fun.
It's unique.
It's unique. It's cute. It's fun sized. It's just like a cool little, I don't know, just
it's so nice. I mean, I've got a mini disc player of all things.
Yeah,
in here.
that's sick. Yeah, even the knobs, everything.
Yeah,
this is very like late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, it's all very early
even
'90s.
The plastics.
And then fuel injection in '93,
which is good. Yeah, that's impressive. Because like '89 to '90, some cars started doing it, but for this to happen,
and it's the fuel injection that works well too.
Right.
It's not the early fuel
laggy,
injection that was so rough.
Oh my god, just robbed it of all power. No, this is cool.
I finally found a car to fit my petite frame. Finally.